Hey folks, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. In this one, I'm going to go over a solid, hard-hitting DPS build that's been my go-to for solo farming heroic content for a while now. Let's jump into it. So this is a great build for any kind of heroic content or farming harder content. I usually tend to keep my world on heroic with 3 to 4 directives active, spending a lot of time farming level 4 control points. And this has kind of become my daily driver for it, with its high damage output and, to be honest, pretty good survivability. This build also breezes through any kind of heroic mission, and I've used it for a couple of Iron Horse raids. I'll break this build down into the gear pieces with their brands and attribute roles, weapons and their talents, skills, specializations, and the playstyle, starting off with the gear itself. For the mask, I've used a piece of Providence that gives us the 15% headshot damage for the one piece brand bonus. And for the attributes, it's got weapon damage for the core attribute, which it comes with natively, and for the minor attributes, I've got them rolled to critical hit chance and critical hit damage, and in the mod slot, an extra critical hit damage mod. On the chest, I've got a second piece of Providence giving us that 10% crit chance for the 2-piece brand bonus. And just like the mask, it's got weapon damage on the core, and crit chance and damage for the minor attributes, with another critical hit damage mod in the mod slot. For the talent on the chest, I've got Spotter. Amplifies total weapon and skill damage by 15% to pulsed enemies. So this gives us an extra 15% multiplicative damage to pulsed targets. However, instead of running a pulse to proc Spotter, instead we're going to be using the mod that comes with the Technician specialization, the linked laser pointer, that automatically pulses a target that the weapon is aimed at. This saves us a skill slot and ensures that every target we shoot at is always pulsed, keeping that 15% amplified damage. This is something we'll get into a little bit later when we talk more about the specialization. For the holster, this build uses a Cheska piece with the one-piece brand bonus giving us 10% crit chance. This is one of the most abundant amounts of crit chance you can have on a single piece of gear, which is great for any kind of crit-based build. For the attributes, we have weapon damage on the core and crit chance and damage on the minor attributes. Which means combining the brand bonus with the attribute, we get a total of 16% crit chance just from this one piece of gear. On the backpack, I've used the named Providence backpack, the Gift, which comes with perfect vigilance, but a normal Providence backpack with the standard version of vigilance will do the exact same amount of damage, with there only being a slight difference between the standard and perfect version of vigilance. Perfect vigilance. Increase total weapon damage by 25%. Taking damage disables this buff for 3 seconds. Standard Vigilance still gives us the 25% increased weapon damage, but taking damage disables the buff for 4 seconds, so there is very little difference between the two. But with this talent, we get a flat damage increase as long as we're not taking damage, but that only applies to our character. The shield skill is still able to take damage while keeping Vigilance active. This means by combining the two, we have an extra 25% weapon damage as well as an extra layer of survivability. If you'd like to get yourself the Gift backpack, it only actually drops from the Dark Zone and Conflict caches, or if you don't want to go anywhere near PvP in the game, you also have a chance to get one from the named item cache. For the attributes in this piece, it's got weapon damage on the core, then more crit chance and crit damage on the minor attributes, with another crit damage mod in the mod slot. For the gloves, I've got a piece of Grupo Sombra, for the one piece brand bonus giving us an extra 15% crit damage. Then weapon damage, crit chance, and crit damage for the attributes. Adding a piece of Grupo to a crit build gives us that extra 15% crit damage, which combined with a good roll gives you a total of 27% crit damage from this single piece. I have tried this build with both the Grupo and named Petrov Contractor's gloves, and the numbers work out pretty much the same. But with the Contractor's gloves coming with damage to armor, we're losing a big chunk of crit damage. and this also makes the build less effective against enemies that don't technically have armor. And by armor I mean the white bars above the health bar. So enemies like the heavies, doggos, or the murder wallies would all take less damage from the contractor's gloves. So I tend to prefer to go with the Gruppo for a more all-round damage to different enemy archetypes. And for the knee pads, I'm using the named Overlord knee pads, the Fox's Prayer, with weapon damage for the core attribute and crit hit damage for the minor attribute. For the other minor attribute, the Fox's Prayer always come with 8% damage to targets out of cover as a fixed attribute, which is one of the strongest damage attributes available in the game, with it being multiplicative damage, and most enemies tend to be out of cover most of the time. Plus, with the brand being Overlord's armament, we also get an extra 10% rifle damage for the one piece bonus, which is handy because I always run a rifle with this build. For the weapons with this build, I use an assault rifle and a rifle, the rifle for longer ranges and the assault rifle for more mid to short. The rifle I'm using with this build is the classic M1A. That comes with rifle damage, critical hit damage, and for the minor attribute, I've rolled damage to targets out of cover. Because like I mentioned earlier, this is a very strong damage attribute and always worth grabbing where you can. For the talent, I've gone with Boomerang. Critical hits have a 50% chance to return the bullet to the magazine. If a bullet is returned to the magazine, the next shot has 40% increased damage. I find this a great talent to fight with from range, also increasing our overall DPS by having bullets returning to the magazine, allowing us to fire for longer, without reloading. For the mods on the M1A, I have 5% crit damage on the scope, plus 5 rounds on the magazine, and the linked laser pointer on the underbarrel. For the assault rifle, I'm using the Police M4. That comes with assault rifle damage, health damage, and like the M1A, I've rolled damage to targets out of cover for the minor attribute. The talent I have on here is Ranger. Amplifies weapon damage by 2% for every 5 meters you are away from the target. This is another talent that amplifies damage, and I usually tend to fight at mid to long range, so I always have between 6 to 12% amplified damage. There are other talents you could run here like Optimist, but the theme with the talents in this build is burst damage. Each one, with the exception of Boomerang, things like Spotter, Vigilance and Ranger, are all active the moment you pull the trigger, with no need to wait for anything to build up, which is great for fast, instant burst damage. The mods I have on the M4 are 5% crit damage on the scope and muzzle, plus 20 rounds on the magazine, which also reduces your reload speed by 10%, and the linked laser pointer on the underbarrel. For the pistol, I use the named revolver Orbit, which comes with Perfect Finisher. Swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds of killing an enemy grants 35% crit chance and 40% crit damage. Now with this build, the crit chance is wasted, with it being very close to, if not at, the 60% crit chance hard cap, but we really want the crit damage from this, and 40% is quite a big boost. Like with the gift backpack, this is another named item that comes from the Dark Zone and Conflict caches, or a named item cache, but it's pretty easily replaced with an M1911 with the standard finisher talent. The difference between the two talents, with the standard, instead of having 35% chance and 40% crit damage, comes with 30% chance and 30% crit damage, which again, ignoring the chance, means we only actually lose 10% crit damage for not having the named version. With this build, for the skills, I always use the Crusader shield and often have the Revive Hive equipped. The shield works with both the Police M4 and the M1A, and its main job is to make sure Vigilance stays up and active, as I mentioned earlier in the video, giving you a little extra protection and shielding you from any incoming damage. And because I mainly use this build solo, the second skill I do tend to keep the Revive Hive on me, as a just in case kind of thing. But really this slot is completely flexible, and I tend to switch it out depending on what I'm doing in game. For solo crowd control, the Decoy or the Blinder Firefly are very strong options. Or if you want to give your shield a boost and make sure its armor keeps up, the Technician's Artificer Hive is a great option too. I've already mentioned the specialization for this build a few times throughout the video, but the Technician is the only way to go. First, we gain access to the Specialization's weapon mod, the linked laser pointer, that like I mentioned, pulses any target you point your weapon at. This makes sure Spotter on the chest always stays active. Next, just for having the specialization equipped, we have an extra skill tier, which means we can have all of our gear rolled to weapon damage for the largest possible damage output, with the benefit of all of our skills being skill tier 1. This means the shield gets a little bit more survivability, and whatever you pick for your second skill also gets a boost. And of course we also get access to the Technician's Hive skill variant, the Artificer Hive, which can also give our shield a boost and replan the armor on it, or if you play in a group, you can also buff your teammates' skills with. And while we're talking about specializations, don't forget when you equip a specialization to change the weapon damages to the weapons you're going to be using, which in this case is assault rifles and rifles. For the stats of this build, keeping in mind I have my SHD watch over 1000 and I might be missing 1 or 2% on a few rolls, it comes out with 59% crit chance on both main weapons, 191 crit damage on the Police M4, and exactly 200% crit damage on the Classic M1A, and 90% headshot damage on the Police M4 with 95% on the Classic M1A. For the weapon damages, I've got 97% all weapon damage, 30% assault rifle damage, and 25% rifle damage. When I play this build, I like to stick to long to mid range, to really take advantage of Ranger on the M4 and the accuracy of the M1A, making sure to keep the shield up whenever possible and trying not to stick to cover. Instead, use the shield and peek from behind cover, this way if any stray bullets catch you, they won't remove vigilance. I've been really enjoying this build lately and I think I'm going to stick with it for solo heroic content for a while. But throw it together, give it a go, let me know what you think. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more Division 2 content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.